I'm joined now by ceramic artist Eric Carlson. Eric, thanks for joining me today. I want to talk about your creative outlet as a kid, because from what I read, creativity was always important to you.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those things I learned from my grandfather. He had me in his shop at about 6 years old. So I was learning how to use tools and equipment and always wanted to strive to be a maker in some way, somehow, as a kid that took everything apart to see how it worked. And I think it was a lot of his influence and a lot of freedom to play. So it allowed me to imagine quite a bit more.
So at what point did you get into ceramics?
Not until I'd say I was in undergrad for athletic training. I
Wow.
had um, I had a 3D design class, and the professor who taught it was a ceramics professor. And I watched him throw one day, and to me, it was magic. And it was a way to create from nothing and have my hands into it all the way. I mean, when you're using wood, you can use certain tools, but with clay, it was just coming out of nowhere. And it stopped me immediately. And then I switched majors with actually a year left in the program. So.
Wow. What was it about clay that you felt like I could be really good at this?
I think it was, once again, it was that same professor. He was the one that stopped and took time to actually sit there and go, you have a hand at this. Why don't you come down and help me out with the studio? Why don't you come down and just start messing with it more, and started doing it more and more and more with me. And that really helped me direct where I was going. So I have to say it was a lot of a professor.
Tell me about your process. You mentioned that you love the fact that it starts from nothing. But do you have an idea when you initially throw that clay?
Yeah, I do. I have two processes where I'll do functional and I do kind of more of a conceptual side. So I definitely sit down and sketch. I have the ideas. I do a lot of research within the work. It's taken a little bit from the history of ceramics. Depending on what I'm looking at, I'm heavily influenced by Japanese art or Japanese ceramics, Korean ceramics, and so on, just because of the tactile nature and I think the usable nature within it was meant to be used, not to just be looked at.
But to that end, I also have read that you do a lot of kind of social commentary
Yeah.
with your work. So tell me about that.
Social commentary comes in all the time. It's kind of where I grew up. It was considered the bad side of town. We're expected to be, one type of way. And to me, it's an outlet, and gives me the ability to show people you need to start looking at, social matters. These things matter. Things around the world matter. We need to be more global in what we do. Just because you see it on TV and can turn it off, I'm trying to get people to think about it more, because they have to be tactile and they can touch the work. So I think it's to draw viewers in and to make people be more socially aware about about topics. One reason I'd say is also culturally. It makes more sense because I feel that I have a little more freedom in saying what I need to say, and don't have to worry about being put under the thumb of some people.
So I read that you are fascinated by kind of the dichotomy of the fact that humans build things up to tear them down, or we are constantly striving to fix what's broken. How does that make its way into your work?
It's, once again, it's that social awareness. It's knowing that we have the ability to destroy, but that fact that we strive within the medical field to find ways to make people live longer or to help out. And it's one of those things, growing up in an area where, once again, where I saw people getting killed, getting hurt, and things like that, but having a mother that was a nurse and being around doctors who were helping those. So I had the social awareness and the social conscious from a young age going, this isn't right. We have this ability to do damage, but we have the ability to be so much more than that. And it's kind of a duality within myself too. So playing into the role of the hypermasculine, growing up in the era of, I'd say, the Arnold Schwarzeneggers, the Sylvester Stallones, and the movies where they never ran out of bullets. And to me, it was, why are we doing this? Why do we need to do this? And when I got older, I was like, it's kind of a selfish point of view, and I want people to think outside of that. The idea of violence as it gets worse scares me immensely, especially now with a daughter who's 6. I don't want her to have to worry about that and deal with that.
So when you read these stories on the news, in the news rather, do you immediately conceptualize what your work is going to look like?
I start having ideas. I sketch it all out. Sometimes ideas will be on the back burner for years. Sometimes they'll morph. At a plush weapon series that I still work on, or a fiber series that I work on as well, and they started off in ceramic handguns. And I was talking about gun violence, and people didn't take to it. They were scared of them because they looked real. But the fact that they couldn't interact with them, they would duck away from them, but the change didn't stay. The feeling didn't sink in, and I found that looking at comedians, I think, are the best politicians. So I started adding a little more of a sense of humor to the work to get people to think about it more. So I switched that series actually to a plush series where there are body pillows and things like that that they can pick up and cuddle, and then they start realizing the seduction that starts to play in. So work can evolve over a series of time, and that took about, I'd say, 8 years to morph, and then that series morphed into the landmine series that I'm doing now. And that's all ceramic, but once again, I wanted to make it in a way where it was handmade, so I'm throwing things on the wheel and then carving and building them that way. So it's kind of me trying to break apart once again and rebuild and make things in a way that people understand it. So
Tell me about the landmine series. It's very interesting to me because you're doing ceramic pieces that are to scale.
yeah.
And as a visual person, I can latch on to that, to be able to see, wow, that's actually how large these destructive things are. Was that the goal?
That is the goal. That was one of the goals, and it's to show the fragility of humankind. I mean, it's just want to show how fragile we are with these elements that are supposed to be forgotten. It was based off looking at what was left over in Cambodia and doing the research and seeing that there's more mines per square foot than, I'd say, in a space of Central Park. So trying to walk through Central Park, your way of getting through would be pretty minimal. But the fact that people can't walk out of their front door and worry about that, and doing the research and seeing how many different types, different sizes, the fact that you'd never see these, they've been there for maybe 40 years. The types that were made that look like butterflies, that are painted like butterflies, that little kids are known to pick up. It just scared me even more because it was a coward's way out. And to think about that you don't even have a chance, or there's something that's in the ground that you'd never really see. I wanted them to be able to see this element that typically you would never see. It's underground. And I wanted it to look like it was decaying or kind of aged, and have that feeling. And one of the best things I had with showing it was someone who was in the military and walked through and named all the mines without actually having to look at the actual plaque or the title of the piece. And he knew them all and said they're all to scale and they're all perfect. Or having someone go, "Where'd you buy these?" And I'm like, "No, these aren't bought, these are made." And he stepped back, and he was a veteran, I think, from Vietnam, and this was a show down in Indianapolis.
I think a lot of artists I talk to do their work because they get immense enjoyment out of it. Do you find that you do your work because you enjoy it so much, or because you almost feel an obligation to raise this awareness?
I have both. I make functional work because I enjoy it. That's what I do to relax. The other work, I feel an obligation because it's almost like something screaming inside to get out. This has to be, otherwise I don't have any hair left, but pulling it out when I look at certain topics, because I think of kids and I think of areas that I grew up in, or friends that are in the military and things like that. And it's me, it's a way that I can sit here and talk about it and get people to think about it without yelling or having an argument. It's look at this, take it in, see how it festers. And if I can get you to think about social awareness, then it's working. And that stems from doing the research with certain artists that I look at that have a lot of politics in what they do. And I want people to start thinking that way, because I don't want people to put it off on the side. So, I mean, you can always make something pretty that sits on a shelf. And I know a lot of this work isn't going to be bought, but if it is, the plus to it is benefits. I don't take the benefits. The proceeds actually go towards Adopt a Minefield or better children's shelters, women's shelters, things like that. So that's where that helps. And I want to show that arts have an awareness, and we do a lot. You know, it's not like I'm the artist, I want to make all the money. I teach. That's how I make my money. I can actually make work that can make a difference.
I wanted to ask you about teaching. How much of your social commentary makes its way into the classroom? Is that something that you are passionate about imparting, or is it more about the process?
It's about the process. I let the students lead. Idea of politics never comes up because I want them to have their own point of views. That's where I step back. So they look at my work and they ask me about it, and I'm like, this is what I do as an artist. You can do this too, but if you want to make something functional, make a living that way, that's possible. Everybody's different. You know, the arts, as I tell them, you know, we're in a field in ceramics that have been around since man's been around, and drawing's been around just as long. And to show that we are valid, and that's one of the biggest things, and promoting the arts. But I can't put a kid under a thumb or saying you have to do that because it won't be pure. And that's one of the biggest things. I want the kids to have their idea, the students to have their ideas, and have it be pure and motivated like I was. Because I had traditional potter that I learned from, and extreme conceptual artist that I learned from as well. So I had the best of both worlds and how I put it together.
What do you find yourself learning from your students?
For me, it always teaches me to evolve and be better. Like I tell them, the day I stop learning is the day I stop teaching, because they're teaching me just as much. So they teach me ways that I can see. They give me fresh eyes every day. So I can't sit there and be laxed on my ideas and skills or things like that. So.
Well, Eric, I appreciate your work. I think it gives all of us fresh eyes. So thank you for the awareness that you're raising and for your beautiful work. And thanks for being here.
Well, thank you.
For more information, visit ericdcarlson.com.
Arts in Focus on PBS Fort Wayne is funded in part by